This episode is brought to you by DistroKid. DistroKid is the easiest way for musicians to get their music into all the platforms: Amazon, Apple, Tidal, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, and more. Plus, you've got unlimited uploads, and the artist keeps 100% of what they make. But what I love most about DistroKid is their app. The design of it just makes the whole process so easy. Now you can be sure that you're doing everything you need to do to get your music out there. Go to distrokid.com to check it out or download the app now.
Allow me to live and breathe like a man.
You've heard his words on classic albums like Pacific Ocean Blue and Friends. His 1969 collaboration with Brian Wilson, A World of Peace Must Come, gained almost legendary status as one of pop's most storied lost albums before being resurrected to great acclaim by Light in the Attic in 2008. Now you're cordially invited to take a trip into the mind of poet and songwriter Stephen J. Kalinich. Heyday Again Records presents I Love My Life, a postcard from one of the last standing poets of peace and excitation. Order your copy today. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich and Friends. You'll see why heavy hitters like Brian Wilson, Dennis Wilson, Paul McCartney, Steve Cropper, P.F. Sloan, and Diana Ross have all worked with him. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich. Order today at realgonemusic.com. Again, that's realgonemusic.com. Paranoid. Short and punchy, but lethal.
Kind of has punk rock feel to it because of how short it is and how fast it is.
This is my favorite well-known Black Sabbath tune.
Okay, it is my favorite well-known one too.
My favorite overall is Supernaut.
Supernaut's a good one. That one's in my top 5. Megalomania and Under the Sun Every Day Comes and Goes.
That's great. It's got this lethal feeling to it, like being stabbed really quickly with a switchblade.
Yeah, totally. Like being at a punk show in the pit and you're in the wrong crew.
Yeah, exactly. What makes this even better for me is that the song was written as an afterthought. Geezer told Guitar World in 2004, we basically needed a 3-minute filler for the album.
Yeah, and they just did it like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
He quickly did the lyrics, and Ozzy read them as he was singing.
Yeah.
I mean, they feel lived in.
They were being born as it was being recorded.
Bill Ward says this song took 25 minutes from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Welcome to Discograffiti, the Music Obsessives podcast that gives freaks like you and me the chance to connect with the brotherhood obsessed with rating the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever mattered. I'm your host, Dave Gebro, and with 4 new episodes each week, you're going to gain a comprehensive knowledge of an act's history and output in the time it takes to listen to one album. Each new guest swings a hard left into an area you either had no idea you needed to know about or know all about and can't believe you're not alone out there. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on Black Sabbath, along with our special guest, JACKASS'S Wee Man. Here's just a few of the many things that Wee Man and I discuss in this podcast. A rundown of his experience attending the already legendary Back to the Beginning gig, the band's early days growing out of the late-60s British blues scene, the great allure of turning their debut record around in 48 hours flat that continued to hold appeal as a way of working for some members of the group, the shockingly depressive underpinning of Geezer's lyrics for Paranoid, how in the hell Wee Man deals with his jackass-induced aches and pains, a look back at Wee Man's relationship with Billy Barty when he was a young kid, and an in-depth deep dive on every song off Black Sabbath and Paranoid. If you're a Black Sabbath and Jackass superfan like me, you'll want to turn this free version off right now and opt for the director's cut of this episode on our Patreon page, which is ad-free and features 13 additional minutes of essential material. And you can find it in our Patreon shop for mere pennies at patreon.com/discograffiti/shop. Here's what you're missing this week if you're not a Patreon member. If you're a member at the private tier, you're missing out on the director's cut of part 2 of our Wee Man Ozzy era Black Sabbath deep dive, plus our exclusive interview with Tom Frangione. If you're a member at the lieutenant tier, you're missing out on the Tom Frangione interview, and if you're a member at the major tier, well, you're not missing a single thing, because the major tier gives you access to everything that Discograffiti releases. Coming up, we've got Discograffiti's Billy Joel series with special guest Mark Robinson from Unrest, our Jefferson Airplane series featuring band members Jorma Kaukonen and Jack Cassidy, an exclusive interview with ex-Pixies bassist Paz Linchanton on her upcoming solo album, an interview with Lenny Waronker, Season 3 of the Beach Boys, and your Dream Comes True series, which will absolutely, without question, delve deeper into pet sounds than anyone else ever has in history. Plus, an incredibly special Graham Nash deep dive, in which Graham himself rates and discusses everything he's ever released. That means solo, CSN, CSNY, C&N, and for good measure, Crosby's If I Can Only Remember My Name. So don't miss out. Open up your listening app right now and subscribe. And away we go then! Today's guest is a stunt performer, television personality, professional skateboarder, actor, one of my stepdaughter's father's best friends, and my son's favorite person on the planet, aside from his dad and mom. Becoming the subscription manager for the skateboard magazine Big Brother loaded him into a cannon from which he was duly exploded, as that led directly to his involvement with the Jackass crew in the year 2000. His antics on the show included skating as an Oompa Loompa, dressing as a king while rolling Johnny Knoxville down a staircase in a red carpet, and doing deep knee bends with Shaq on his back. He starred in the reality series Armed and Famous, hosted MTV's Scarred, appeared on the first season of NBC's Celebrity Circus, and acted in the holiday film Elfman as the titular character, which he was born to play due to his achondroplasia, not to mention a series of other God-given traits. Most importantly to me, this man is an investor in the Chronic Tacos Mexican restaurant chain. His first location opened in 2010 in Redondo Beach, California, and in February 2018, he changed my life by opening a Long Beach location, which I frequented so often when we used to live there that A, it's just embarrassing, and B, we're moving on back. To make matters worse, I find it impossible to eat like a gentleman there. It's my favorite Mexican food ever on the planet. He's been in 2002's Jackass, 2006's Jackass number 2, 2007's Jackass 2.5, 2010's Jackass 3D, 2011's Jackass 3.5, 2022's Jackass Forever, and that same year's Jackass 4.5. You can also see him in the upcoming Spinal Tap 2. At my stepdaughter Madison's wedding this past June, we finally met, and my son Mason fell head over heels in love with him, knowing absolutely nothing about him except for the fact that he was and is the nicest guy the world has ever seen, and Mason proceeded to do his bidding that entire night like a friggin' henchman, bringing him food, drinks, and napkins for hours on end. Will you please welcome my son's best friend of all time, a man who played a part in creating a cash windfall for friend of the pod Mike Watt due to the Minutemen's Corona enjoying a second life as the bone-breaking soundtrack music for children the world over in imitation of their heroes such as this man, a man who proves conclusively that colossally big things come in less colossally big packages. It's the one and only Jason Wee Man Acuna.
Wow. I've never had an intro that long, that elaborate, and that amazing, all packed together in one.
You're totally deserving of it, man. You really are. And,
Thank you.
Really, of all of the things I've mentioned, the sweetheart angle is far and away the top part of the pyramid, because when you left the wedding at the end of that night, what everyone listening needs to know is that we kept texting all through the night, you telling me what an amazing child I have.
Yeah.
And a jerk isn't going to do something like that. It takes
No worries.
sweetheart. So
Yeah.
first, without further ado, let's introduce in his
Mason.
first spot on the show ever in 4 years, Mason.
Hell
Go
yeah.
ahead, talk with Jason.
How have you been, Mason?
Good.
Yeah? Didn't you get quesadillas that night?
Yeah.
I remember.
All right, I'm gonna ask some questions. You be my Ed McMahon. You sit next to me, okay?
How about I say how good you're doing? Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mason.
Okay, so, this is actually a Discograffiti first. In the 4 years, coming up on 4 years, November will be 4 years that I've done the show, I've never gone back to an artist. Black Sabbath is such a major band.
Yeah.
I had a request to go back and redo it. I think because I had done so much research that Jim Florentine, who was the host of that metal show, he came as more of a listener and a learner than a participator. And so when you and I were first talking about it, and just so people know, our decision to do Sabbath was made on July 18th, and Ozzy died on July 22nd.
Yeah.
So our decision to do this preceded his passing by 4 days.
Yep.
So this is not in any way, shape, or form an attempt to capitalize on ill fortune, but you were at the Back to the Beginning show.
I was.
Talk to me about what that was like. I mean, I saw the video of Jason Momoa coming into the crowd and starting the pit, which was amazing. What were your takeaways from that day?
I'll start off by saying, Ozzy's been a big influence in my life since I was probably Mason's age, so people understand, I just didn't show up to a show, just because it was a big event. But Ozzy's been huge in my life, always, a big part, no matter what he's done, whether it was solo or with Black Sabbath. And when I found out this show was going on, I did whatever I could to be there. I said, I'm going. Ozzy's claiming last show, I'm going to be there. And another buddy and I, discussed, and we said, let's go. Bought our plane tickets and bought our hotel before we even had tickets to the show.
Wow.
And we had a connection in the Ozzy family. And we kept saying, hey, we need tickets. And they're like, oh, don't worry. We'll have something for you. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And before the show even happened, we said, we're there already, without being there. And we're going to the show no matter if we enter with tickets or we hop the fence. So, and once we found out, this was 6 months in advance, I was praying every day. I wanted Ozzy to be there. I didn't want this to be a tribute. Yeah. I knew the show was going to go on anyway, if it was him there or not. And I was just please just make it. Because everybody knew with his Parkinson's, it could be any day. You know
what his passing immediately reminded me of is when Toys R Us, when they closed up shop and they filed for whatever it was, Chapter 13 or 11.
Yeah.
The guy who started the company within days died. And it felt like the same thing. He tied up loose ends. He walked away from the most important thing in the universe to him, and it was over, and he knew it. It's incredible how the mind, spirit, and the body are aligned in that way sometimes.
Yeah, yep. No.
Really nuts.
It kind of didn't feel like it was going to happen when Ozzy was performing, but we all were there, and everybody around was we're at his memorial right now, and he's here, which I think is the best way for it to happen. These were fans that gave blood, sweat, and tears to be there. And I think that was the best part of it, because once he passed, granted, the whole country and the whole world was there for him. Yeah. But the people who really knew that it was his last show gave it their all to be there no matter where they were in the world. Yeah. And I'm getting the feedback now that people can't believe I was there. They're like, you were there? You were there? And it's yeah, and I'll never forget it, His accomplishments truly in music were completely unique. He didn't play an instrument. With a tiny degree of exceptions, he didn't write the lyrics that he sang, which was, at least in Sabbath, was Geezer Butler, the bassist. Yeah. He was a front man, but his vocal melodies, especially on the first few Sabbath albums, which really were the ones responsible for the band's legacy,
follow the guitar lines pretty much religiously.
Yeah.
So you would think that his contribution, in a sense, would almost be minimal because of that list of attributes, but it's the opposite. That caveman-like simplicity wound up being a plus, not a minus.
Yeah, it was almost like punk rock 3 chords,
Right.
But he took it to the next level.
As far as what they mean to me, I make horror movies. I've made a couple of movies. My last one's called Zombie Honeymoon. I've always had that darkness that allows me to connect with the material with, absolutely no leap whatsoever. Mason has grown up on horror films. He saw the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre when he was 2. The episode rules today. No non-Ozzy. That's another episode. We're doing no Dio records. Typically, this is a completist show. Everybody who listens knows they're going to hear every release, but we're making an exception this time because if you want to hear the Jim Florentine episodes, that's a 4-pack. That has every single Black Sabbath record. We're only focusing on Ozzy. So let's introduce the characters in today's episode. We've got Ozzy on lead vocals, Tony Iommi on guitar, Geezer Butler on bass, and Bill Ward on drums. And first, before we hit that classic self-titled first record, let's do the run-up. And the run-up is a section of the show where we try to get with great economy up to the first note of music in the early history of the band. So following the breakup of their previous band, Mythology, in 1968, Tony Iommi and Bill Ward were looking to form a heavy blues rock band in Aston, Birmingham. They enlisted Geezer Butler and Ozzy, who had played together in a band called Rare Breed. Ozzy had placed an advertisement in a local music shop that legendarily said, Ozzy Zig needs gig, has own PA. Do you know what the new group was initially called?
Earth.
Before Earth.
Before Earth? No.
They were called the Polka Talk Blues Band.
Oh, yes. I did hear this. Yes.
And the exact origin of that name is a little bit vague. It's either from a brand of talcum powder or an Indian Pakistani clothing shop. But either way, the Polka Talk Blues Band included a slide guitarist named Jimmy Phillips, who was a childhood friend of Ozzy's, and a saxophone player named Alan Aker Clark. After they shortened their name to Polka Talk, the band again changed their name to Earth, which Ozzy hated. And this I love. Rather than asking the 2 other weird side dudes to leave the band, here's how you know that there were communication issues that were stitched right into the fabric of the band. The guys broke up and then quietly reformed as a 4-piece. So
good.
In December 1968, Iommi very quickly left Earth to join Jethro Tull. His stint with the band was really quick, but if you watch the Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus, which was never released at the time and was released about 30 years ago, and you can find it, Iommi is with them, and you can see him there. It's kind of like a mind blower to fuse those 2 worlds together, but he was thankfully unsatisfied with the direction of Jethro Tull, obviously being able to see into the future, knowing that they would suck as badly as they do. And Iommi returned to Earth by the end of the month, and in 69, the band discovered that they were being mistaken for another English group named Earth. They decided to change their name again, and there was a movie theater across the street from the band's rehearsal room that was showing a 1963 horror film starring Boris Karloff, directed by Mario Bava, called Black Sabbath. Watching people line up to see the movie, and Geezer noted that it was strange that people would spend so much money to see scary movies. After that, Ozzy and Geezer wrote the lyrics for a song called Black Sabbath, which was inspired by a vision that Geezer had of a black silhouetted figure standing at the foot of his bed. Let's talk about the musical tritone, also known as the Devil's Interval. So they created metal, but the creation of metal is really because of this thing. I'm not a musician. The Devil's Tritone is the ominous sound in Black Sabbath. Dun, dun, dun. That's the tritone. So that's
almost kind of like, what's that movie that does almost that sound too? Dun, 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 dun.
Right. 2001, right?
Mm-hmm.
The popular music of that time, to give it context, was dominated by flower power, hippies, folk music. Rob Halford.
Bob Dylan and all that.
Right. Rob Halford called that song probably the most evil song ever written. And they basically were looking to consciously attempt the musical equivalent of horror films.
Yeah.
So now we're in phase one, forging the heaviest of metals down in Satan's smithery, 1969 to 1973.
Yeah.
So their first show as Black Sabbath took place on August 30th, 1969 in Workington, England. They were signed to Philips Records in November 69, and their first single came out in January 1970. It was actually a cover of a song by a band named Crow called Evil Woman.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because initially they kind of grew out of a blues rock scene that was not fully metal. At this point, they were kind of blues rock Cream adjacent without fully coming into their own. Their first major exposure came when the band appeared on John Peel's Top Gear radio show in 69, performing Black Sabbath, NIB, Behind the Wall of Sleep, and Sleeping Village to a national audience in Great Britain right before recording their first record. Although the Evil Woman single failed to chart, the band were afforded 2 days of studio time in November to record their debut record. Let's talk about that self-titled record, which was released February 13th, 1970.
Friday, February 13th.
Nice. I didn't know that. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe first, let's talk about Iommi's really distinctive playing style, which was not even a conscious choice, but a pragmatic solution to a problem.
Yeah. I don't know what manual labor job he had offhand. I can't think of it. But
he worked at a sheet metal factory.
Yeah, sheet metal. And he cut the tips of his fingers off, where it's really where you touch the strings when you're playing. And he then had to add like a prosthetic that he kind of made and used to help play. And of course, it's not human skin-like, so it's going to change the tone a little.
It was actually the tops of dish detergent bottles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I think by now he's changed it, but that was at first what he was using. And it totally changed the tone.
And then not only that, but the detuning, which actually was a large part of creating that ominous vibe.
Yeah.
That was also a pragmatic solution because it was so hard for him to bend the strings. He couldn't do it if they were as taut as they were. So he would detune them so he'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he had to lose the tips of his finger for heavy metal to even be created.
There's always something good out of something bad.
Yeah, it's incredible, but that really is the silver lining there. It's amazing. It's possible that heavy metal never would have happened if that industrial accident hadn't gone down.
It could have been called sheet metal, too.
Yeah.
It's so crazy that sheet metal started heavy metal.
No kidding, man. That's unbelievable. That's absolutely nuts. So, he came in there already kind of having that style. Yeah. And the first song on the first record is known as, and is always referred to as, the very first doom metal song. Yeah. Right there, right at the top of the record. Although I see the two sides of the record, I always think of side one as demon and side two as creamin'. Side two is like Cream. It does have much more of a blues rock kind of a vibe to it. But the very first record, they had 2 days to do it. And one of those days was the mix. So it was basically live.
1 day recording.
Not only was it live, but Ozzy was singing at the same time as they were playing. So he was just put in a separate booth and then boom, off they went. And what Ozzy said about it is once and this is in his book, I Am Ozzy, once we'd finished, we spent a couple of hours double tracking some of the guitar and vocals. And that was that. Done. We were in the pub in time for last orders. It can't have taken any longer than 12 hours in total, and that's how albums should be made, in my opinion. A lot of bands, when they go into the studio and they're forced to have an experience like this, it's nightmarish and they never want to repeat it. For Ozzy, it was the reverse. The farther they got away from 12 hours total, the more he would look at this as the perfect possibility.
Yeah.
Which I got to give him credit for, because I can think of no other act where that's the case.
Yeah.
It's
The
pretty
best
cool.
part is I love that he said, yeah, once the 12 hours done, we looked and we had just enough time to still go to the pub.
It's awesome. And by the way, to have done as many substances as that man did and live as long as he did is really amazing, really incredible. Track 1 of album 1, the very first heavy metal album of all time, the first heavy metal song of all time, Black Sabbath, was named the greatest heavy metal song of all time by Rolling Stone. And the riff was created when Geezer began playing a fragment of the piece Mars from Gustav Holst's The Planet Suite on his bass. Tony Iommi returned the next day with that famously dark tritone, the dun dun dun. So, you know, the sound effects, the rain, the church bells, that hooded figure at the end of the bed that created this whole mythology. Talk to me about, you know, your relation with this track, the beautiful simplicity of it.
If you feel the beginning of it, it's almost like a negative scene. And then there is a cut where it goes positive after. I think it's a few minutes in where you're like, oh, now I see the light, you know? But it's like a nightmare where you're dreaming and you're like, okay, it's, you know, it's dark, it's gloomy, and then it comes and, you know, now it's good. And it just keeps getting heavier and heavier. It starts off with the rain, the low, and then it just gets heavy, and you're just like, I'm feeling it, I'm into it, I love it.
And then as far as I'm concerned, The Wizard's even better.
That's my favorite song of the whole album.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
So with the harmonica, once you hear the harmonica beginning and then it just cuts, you know, the harmonica starts it off, boom.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, like a whole different story from the first track. I love Black Sabbath, but The Wizard is where I feel like the gates opened and the horse bolts out.
Yeah.
It's really interesting as not just a fan, but if you listen to them in chronological order and you watch the blues rock influence first flare up and then kind of die out and go away. When they incorporate it into songs like The Wizard, they're doing their best with blues before they drop it as an influence.
Yep.
The harmonica, even though, you know, it's kind of coming out of the blues rock scene, the way that folds into, you know, their take on metal this early on, it's just on fire. It underscores.
It flows. It's very flowy. It flows perfectly.
And Bill Ward, I always come back to Bill Ward's work on these songs because he really is, if you just listen to what he's doing on the kit back there, like there's been times I listen to their records and I'm just specifically listening to what he's doing. And I'm not that kind of a listener where I typically will just hone in on one instrument, but he's worth doing that for.
I listen to, and I'll just give it, I'm not jumping ahead or anything, but I'll give an example of like Paranoid. When you hear that switch where it's like, it's almost like something happened and then it's like a skip every time, but it's a skip that feels good. But I understand what you're saying. When you listen to these guys, you can hear specific things in how they play and what they do.
Yeah, and you can feel their relationship as buds coming up. You can hear.
Yeah, and how they grow more.
Yeah.
From each album. From each album, you can hear how they grow together and understand, okay, this is what we're putting out. This is what we need to do. This is how it's going to connect together.
And then they fall apart together. They don't just grow. They fucking go to pieces together too, which is actually interesting to watch or listen to. So Behind the Wall of Sleep, another classic. That guitar solo, the rhythm section work again, and that melodic curly cue in the intro bass riff. I mean, I can fucking feel that in my bowels every time. Tremendous. That's one of my favorites. NIB, total genius. The lyrics are in the first person from the point of view of Satan. And Geezer has said that the song was about the devil falling in love and totally changing, becoming a good person. That is such a genius foundation for a lyrical slant. Unreal. And this one stretches out a bit at 6 minutes and is all the better for it. The whole album side is just these 4 songs, and it is a completely perfect album side. NIB has been described as standing for Nativity in Black or Name in Blood, but apparently
Yeah, it was the beard.
Yeah.
It looked like a pen nib.
Right.
And that's yep.
Bill Ward's pen nib beard.
Yep, Bill Ward's pen nib beard.
And by the way, that's the perfect example of, just a bunch of dudes from Birmingham just fucking with each other and the world interpreting it as demonic.
Yeah.
It's not demonic at all. It's just a bunch of guys busting on each other who've known each other since they were little. So the flip is actually a very different story. It's almost like they were a little bit apprehensive to completely spread their pterodactyl wings, So like on the B-side, they're kind of hedging their bets a little bit. Evil Woman is a cover song.
Evil woman, don't you play your trick. It's not even like, it's almost has a little poppy to it.
It's not bad, but it's easily the worst song on the record.
Yeah.
For me, there's no question about it. It's still far better than your typical bar band bullshit, but it has far more in common with the roots and the source material that metal initially grew out of. So it's historically of great interest.
Yeah.
Like if you really want to find out from the vagina that Black Sabbath was birthed, it would be Evil Woman. And then Sleeping Village starts, a tradition that I personally love. I know some people would want 100% metal, but to me, the texture of the records, what makes them, to me, I have a lava lamp going right now, and the lava lamp, without Sleeping Village and Fluff and Laguna Sunrise and those records, the metal doesn't hit as hard because you don't have the soft part.
Yeah. It's kind of like the way the tide flows. There's a high tide and there's a low tide, and the waves aren't always going to be the same size.
Yeah.
And each album has a little, like when we go down, each album does have a little bit of the cream in it.
Yeah.
It's not all black coffee.
No,
Some songs you got to add a little cream.
Yeah. Well, this one also hedges its bets because it's not pure ambience either.
Yeah.
It starts off with the boinging mouth harp, which is, by the way, the producer, Roger Bain. But then it does blast off into hyperspace and it puffs its chest out and becomes one of the best and most shredding songs on the record. But from here on in, after this, it would be pure ambience. It wouldn't blast off into a metal track. And then Warning, which is, for me, a bit bloated and prog-like, almost like taking from the Jethro Tull songbook a little bit on Iommi's side. But it wouldn't be that often that they would shoot for a 10-minute song in the future. I mean, The Writ, Megalomania, I can't remember which ones approach that length.
Megalomania does.
Yeah, I think this is the longest one in their catalog.
Yeah, and Megalomania is one of my favorites.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
And then that's the record. I think on the B-side, Evil Woman and Warning are good.
Yeah.
Sleeping Village is great.
Yeah.
Here's my little capsule review for the record. It's funny, as rudimentary and lumbering and paleolithically knuckleheaded as this album is, as what you see is what you get as this is, it feels like the arrival of a fully formed beast. They barely even got better than this. Some bands are just like that. They show up as good as they're ever going to get. I mean, like that riff and the melodic bass parts in Behind the Wall of Sleep, the proto-blues metal of The Wizard, it's all there already. They just basically remain this good. It's one of the best debut albums of all time. For me, just for, some of the watered-down blues of the second side, I'll give it 4 3/4 stars.
Okay. I'll give it 4.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you're a little tougher on it than me.
It's not my fave.
Yeah.
I love it because they did come out the way they did. But the B-sides are the ones that, like, I don't play them over and over.
Right.
And there's other albums where their songs I play over and over.
Yeah.
I'll play Black Sabbath and The Wizard all day long off this album.
Yeah.
Those are my songs off this album. Other than that, I don't think I've ever been like, oh, I got to listen to Evil Woman. Or,
Yeah.
If I hear The Wizard, I'm like, turn it up.
Yeah.
So, that's why I'm a little tough. I give it a 4.5.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also from this time period, they had the Wicked World single in 1970. It was originally on the B-side of Evil Woman, and then it became an albumless single in its own right in 1971.
Yeah.
That's worth pointing out. On September 18th, 1970.
Still the same year. They put out a second album.
Crazy.
The same year.
I mean, during those days, no wonder so many people got fucked up from speed, especially in the music world, because nowadays bands are taking 4 or 5 years between records Back then, you were supposed to do 2 albums in a year.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, I'm Dave Gebrow. I threw my career as a licensed hearing instrument specialist in the trash, sold my house, and moved to the East Coast with my wife and 5-year-old son in order to focus on making the ultimate weekly podcast for music obsessives thrive. But weekly wasn't enough for me, so I bumped it up to 4 shows a week. Becoming a subscriber to Discograffiti's Patreon gives you access to hundreds of exclusive episodes. As a 2-show per week private, you get the weekly show by and for our Patreon family, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. As a 3-show-a-week lieutenant, you'll get early release, ad-free, extended director's cuts of the main show. They're the shows as they were intended to be heard. Plus, you'll gain access to half the Patreon archive and the upcoming Beach Boys Behind the Mirror companion episodes, which will feature dozens of special guests from within the Beach Boys camp talking about and rating their music. But as a 4-show-per-week major, you'll be drowning in a flood of must-hear binge listening, because I'll be bombarding you with episodes about super cool bands that are too subterranean for free Fridays. It's like going to music college, but with a tuition that makes all kinds of sense. Plus, our entire Patreon archive is yours. Discograffiti's Top 10, our Buried Treasure show, Rock Cousteau, our Slag Off show, Queasy Listening, and the Private Press with Paul Major. And all that for the price of only a cup of coffee a week. Times are tough, you say? Fret not, because there's a $1 tier. Or you could just join as a basic member and buy episodes piecemeal from our Patreon shop. Don't risk feeling badly about yourself by not giving. Check out patreon.com/discograffiti to find the tier that's right for you. Once again, that's patreon.com/discograffiti. This episode is brought to you in part by Bespoke LA. Located in the Fairfax district of Los Angeles, Bespoke LA is the modern podcaster's dream come true. It's got 2 podcast pods available, one with audio only and the other with both audio and video. Just think, you can start your own podcast tomorrow without investing a single penny in equipment. What, you don't have experience editing? Don't even sweat it. For an additional fee, Bespoke LA can edit your podcast. Or not, it's entirely up to you. Rates start at $75 an hour with discounts if you book 4 sessions at once. Go to bespokela.com/podcast. That's BSPOKELA.com/podcast for more information or to book your time today. And be sure to tell them that Dave sent you for a one-time 25% discount. September 18, 1970, Paranoid. So that was September 18th in the UK, January 7th, 1971 in the US.
In the United States, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you didn't know your shit, you would look at the track listing and think, oh, this must be the greatest hits record. Because if you even look at, for example, the show that you saw, back to the beginning, there are 4 songs played. 3 of those songs are from this record.
Yep.
War Pigs, NIB, Iron Man, and Paranoid. The only song not from this record is NIB, which is their first record. This is the cornerstone of their legacy. This is who Black Sabbath is. To a lot of people, this is all they know about Black Sabbath.
I made a sock off this album. I made a sticker, So Merge 4 Socks put socks out for me, and I did different designs and stuff. And I called my artist buddy and I said, I want a War Pig sock.
Nice.
And I made pigs in full gear doing war. And people knew the reference when they saw War Pigs.
That's awesome.
They're like, yeah.
So do you know about, the whole story about the artwork?
Oh, Paranoid with the guy like tripping out?
Yeah.
Nah.
This is an interesting story. Paranoid was originally the album was called War Pigs. But the record company changed it because of a fear of backlash from supporters of the Vietnam War at the time.
Yeah.
It was too late for them to alter the artwork. So Ozzy said in 98, that album title had nothing to do with the sleeve. What the fuck does a bloke dressed as a pig with a sword in his hand got to do with being paranoid? I don't know. But they decided to change the album title without changing the artwork. Joe Smith, who was the executive vice president at Warner's from 70 to 72, he said, quote, "We were in the midst of the war ourselves in this country, and I knew we weren't going to call it War Pigs." So the artwork has to do with it being called War Pigs.
Okay. But you can't really tell because it looks
Blurry.
a blurred photo, you know?
Yeah. So even if it was called War Pigs, it would
You
be.
still wouldn't get the reference. I think I get the reference more with it being called Paranoid. When you're paranoid, you kind of feel like you're shaking, and that would make a blurry photo.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. It's funny.
I think it came off better. I think the record label mistake was actually a benefit.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably right. I mean, I can't imagine
For everybody, even for the band, you know?
Yeah. I can't imagine any other artwork. Are those socks still possible to order, by the way?
I have them, yeah.
You do? Okay. So are you selling them?
I kind of give them away.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll get you guys some.
That's awesome. That is so cool that you did that for this one.
Yeah.
So the record did really well. It reached number 12 in the U.S., and it would go on to sell 4 million copies in the U.S. with almost no airplay.
Yeah.
It's always voted the greatest metal album of all time. Rolling Stone voted it the number 1 greatest metal album ever. And it is the only album for Black Sabbath to top the UK albums chart until the album 13 came out in 2013. So they came back to the studio with the same producer, Roger Bain, 4 months after the album was released. And from June 16th to 18th in 1970, they recorded it. Most of the songs on here wound up evolving during onstage improvisational jams. So again, that blues rock thing, but it came out of that and then kind of released it and let it kind of sink to the bottom of the ocean. You know, something that Iommi said in 98, he said, "The Paranoid single attracted screaming kids. We saw people dancing when we played it, and we decided that we shouldn't do singles for a long while after that to stay true to the fans who'd liked us before we'd become popular." So
I love that.
Yeah, let's talk about the record. I mean, let's just dive in with the songs. War Pigs first.
Yeah, it calls it out how it is. Word for word, it says what war is about and says what really happens.
Again, that space, allowing Ozzy that space.
Yeah.
You just have the ticking of the hi-hat, and that's kind of all you have when he's singing, and it really underscores how important he is as a frontman.
Yeah.
Do you know the original title of War Pigs?
Nope.
Walpurgis.
What is it?
Walpurgis, which has something to do with the witches' Sabbath.
Okay.
It's some kind of like deep occult.
Yeah, witchery thing.
Geezer said, Walpurgis is sort of like Christmas for Satanists. And to me, war was the big Satan. But when we brought it to the record company, they thought Walpurgis sounded too satanic. And that's when we turned it into War Pigs. But we didn't change the lyrics because they were already finished. Also, here is where they start doing those kind of confusing, but I really love it, amendment to the song titles where they do like an instrumental outro with a slash.
Yeah.
War Pigs / Luke's Wall.
Yes. For
a long time, until they had things like the internet, I had no idea what any of that meant, which title was which, what
there's more coming in other albums too.
Yeah. And I prefer them on the song.
Yeah.
I like those additions. It almost feels like how Prague would have those, multi-parted song titles with Roman numerals.
Yep.
It feels like kind of a tip of the hat to Jethro Tull in that way. And Bill Ward's first memory of performing this song was at the Beat Club in Switzerland in 1968. So I don't know when exactly this was written, but apparently they had it around for a while. Paranoid. To me, this is the best of both worlds. Short and punchy, but lethal.
Kind of has punk rock feel to it.
It does.
It does because of how short it is and how fast it is.
Yeah.
It has punk rock feel to it, me.
This is my favorite well-known Black Sabbath tune.
Favorite well-known, yeah. Okay. It is my favorite well-known one, too.
My favorite overall is Supernaut.
Supernaut's a good one. That one's in my top 5. Megalomania and Under the Sun Every Day Comes and Goes.
That's great. There's another.
Those are my 2 top 2s.
That's another great Slash.
Yeah, that's a Slash song.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Like, I think just because of the incredible, like, as you said, almost punk style economy of Paranoid. I mean, it's not even 3 minutes long where somebody's kind of lumber for a while, like fairies wear boots. It's got this lethal feeling to it, like being stabbed really quickly with a switchblade.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me.
Totally. Like being at a punk show in the pit and you're in the wrong crew.
Yeah, exactly. What makes this even better for me is that the song was written as an afterthought. I don't know if you know this, but Geezer told Guitar World in 2004, we basically needed a 3-minute filler for the album.
Yeah, and they just did it like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
He quickly did the lyrics, and Ozzy read them as he was singing.
Yeah.
I mean, they feel lived in, but literally it's the first time he's
being born. They were being born as it was being recorded.
Absolutely nuts. Bill Ward says this song took 25 minutes from top to bottom.
Yeah.
And for me, the cherry on the cake is that the word paranoid is never mentioned in the lyrics. And I just always thought that that is something that is very cool to do in a song, is to title it something and never mention the title.
Yeah.
I always thought that was extra points for cool.
Yeah.
So obviously, this did really well. In England, it went to number 4. It only reached number 61 in the US, which is kind of amazing. But this brought them much closer to the big time than anything on the first record. And then, a couple interesting things when I was looking into it. Geezer told Mojo Magazine in 2013 that Paranoid is about depression. He says he didn't really know the difference between depression and paranoia. It's a drug thing. When you're smoking a joint, you get totally paranoid about people. You can't relate to people. There's that crossover between the paranoia you get when you're smoking dope and the depression afterwards. And then more importantly, 10 years ago in 2015, Geezer elaborated further to Classic Rock magazine. He says, I used to be a cutter. I'd cut my arms, stick pins through my fingers, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I used to get really depressed, and it was the only thing that could bring me out of it. If Sabbath hadn't made it, I'd have been long dead. I'd have killed me. And Paranoid is like a punk rock reaction to having that as a personality characteristic.
Yeah, totally is.
Which makes it so much more intense, knowing that, I think. And that's probably why I think of the stabbing with the switchblade because of that. It's also interesting to know, because when I hear this song, I don't think Led Zeppelin. But Geezer was dead set against this song going on the record because he thought it way too closely resembled Communication Breakdown by Zeppelin.
I can see it a little bit, but I don't think I see the resemblance, but I can see where he could get that feeling.
He literally didn't think the band was going to get away with it.
I've never referenced it to that,
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Okay, Planet Caravan. Let's light up the bong. Let's,
That one is very chill. That's where you put the lava lamp on.
Totally. Especially because, the next song drops like an anvil. But say what you want about these guys not being hippies, but this track proves that they weren't afraid to bust out the bongos and the flute.
Yeah, of course.
And really, like I said before, the texture. The guys, I don't know if you know this, they had doubts about going this route.
So they had to throw in their little bit of where they came from.
Yeah.
Just so you knew, like, okay, we're still here.
Yeah.
Just a little touch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love the Leslie speaker, the vocal effect, that vibrato. I kind of love all of it.
I'll hear it if I'm hearing the album, but that's one of the songs, once again, I won't be like, put that on replay.
No, me neither.
But if the album's on, I'll let it play through. Yeah, I won't skip it, but I'll let it play through.
It's actually long at 4.5 minutes, but it's perfect.
Yeah.
To me, it's perfect. Okay, what's your feelings on Iron Man? I've heard some shit talking about this, but I fucking love it.
You have to go to where you first heard it and how you feel about it. And I first heard it when I was young and as a kid. And it has that like get you going kind of feel where it's like, I am Iron Man, da-na-na-na, and you just get pumped. And if you either don't have that feeling or you have another feeling, that's how you're going to feel for the rest of your life with it.
Yeah.
And to me, loved it. On that album, it's, one of my songs.
Yeah, me too. It's great. And that effect on his voice. Do you know how he did that?
Do I know how he did it? No.
There's been speculation over the years if it was processed with something called a ring modulator, which had been used in the Doctor Who TV show.
Yeah.
But according to Geezer, a really low-tech method was used. Ozzy just sung through a fan that was on. Isn't that awesome? I love how fucking low-tech that is. You cannot get more low-tech than that.
No. Just take a fan and do it through there. Let's make it happen that way.
Yeah. My favorite thing about this song is that the original title was Iron Bloke.
Oh, okay.
Which is so ridiculous. But
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked.
when
Yeah.
Ozzy walked into the studio, he said that the riff sounded like a big iron bloke walking about. So that became the placeholder title for a little while as the band worked out the song before it evolved to Iron Man. But honestly, I kind of wish it stayed Iron Bloke because that is just so dumb that it almost could have worked, I think.
I don't know. I think it may have gotten lost.
I love Iron Bloke. Well, it didn't do that great. It only reached
Yeah.
number 52 on Billboard.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, that's their highest charting single.
Wow.
They never made it higher than
I could see that because it was a hit. People who weren't even Black Sabbath fans, if you brought up Iron Man, people knew the song.
VH1, not exactly a purveyor of heavy metal, but they ranked the song as the greatest heavy metal song of all time. They're not experts, of course, by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely is a great song. Then comes the side that is not as good as the first side, but still great. Electric Funeral, the worst song on the record.
I could see that.
What do you think?
Of the record, yes.
My argument is that it feels to me like bubblegum metal.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I used to read EC comics when I was a kid. They were like horror comics. And this feels less redolent of pure evil and more like a horror comic, which is not bad by any means, but it just feels like less of the real deal as the rest of it.
No, it is.
It's a little bit more monotonous. That riff, that descending riff, just feels a little monotonous for me. It's not a terrible song, but it's by far my least favorite. I like Planet Caravan better than this.
I keep them about the same.
Hand of Doom.
Hand of Doom, it was one that had to grow on me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't like it at first, and then it grew.
Is it the length of it?
No, it kind of felt like a soap opera horror film to me than like what it actually was. And it was too slow at first. And then once I just started hearing it over and over, it grew. And then you realize what it actually is when you start really listening to the lyrics of like taking, heroin.
Yeah.
So,
well, specifically the Vietnam veterans coming back with a habit.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ever fuck with that stuff?
Nope.
Good man. Good man. Speaking of pain relief, I always wondered, even when Jackass was first starting, as you guys were careening into middle age, if the aches and pains got to the point where it was like unbearable for any of you guys.
I don't know how it is with the rest of the guys, but ever since we started in doing it, I had a muscle precision balancer doctor. I don't have him anymore. He either passed or he moved during COVID. Something happened. He either passed away or he moved to Japan during COVID. But if any time I'd like injure myself or whatever and scar tissue built up, he was able to break it down and get the pain out of it without any surgery or anything.
So have all you guys been able to deal? Because some of those things look like you're going to spend the rest of your life. I mean, for example, Chevy Chase in the original Saturday Night Live, he used to imitate Gerald Ford by doing these falls. He would do Jerry Lewis-like pratfalls. Mm-hmm. And later on in life, he became addicted to opiates because of the pain from those falls.
Yeah.
Are any of you guys, no, I'm not talking about opiates, are any of you guys plagued with pain?
I don't know the rest of the guys. Nobody, I think they're all manned up. Yeah. Nobody speaks up. I think Knoxville would probably be the one, but yeah, like he's been knocked out the most, the concussions are the most for him.
Yeah.
But I don't know like what his pain level is or how he is for him now. For the rest of the guys, I don't know, but I always, as soon as I got hurt, was trying to physical therapy out of it. And I just learned it from skateboarding and different things like that. So, because people always ask me all the time, how's your pain? What's it like? How do you feel? And I'm like, I feel great. Let's go.
Thank God, man. I'm so happy for you because, I deal with chronic pain from surgery and it's no joke. It feels like having a constant companion that you don't want around. Thank God you don't have to deal with that shit.
Yeah.
Really.
Knock on wood. Luckily, I had that guy and I figured out later on, like, how much of a bonus he was for me than what it was. I had a file stack, the manila envelopes where they just throw a couple. Most people are like this thin. Mine was like that thick, and it was just a single sheet every time I visited.
By the way, did I pronounce it right? Achondroplasia?
Yeah.
Okay. Interestingly, when I did research on achondroplasia, on Wikipedia, it's your picture.
Yeah.
That's
most famous.
Really, really amazing. Is that a common condition with...
Achondroplasia is the most common.
Okay.
It's the most of Little People. Like Mini Me, remember Mini Me?
Yeah.
He was completely different. And there was a couple other, there's like 40 different, there's even 40 different kinds of achondroplasia.
Wow.
So yeah,
How about Billy Barty?
Billy Barty was actually, he had like kind of in between Mini Me and myself. Because he was bigger than Mini Me, but he was shorter than me. And I knew him as a kid, and this was way later in life.
Wow.
Yeah. Somehow my dad knew somebody and we met, and I used to go to his house.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I used to go to Billy Barty's house.
I mean, he was legitimately talented guy.
He was
Did
he was
take
famous.
you under his wing?
Not really, because he was way older back then, but we went over and he just seemed jolly and cool and whatever. And I remember one time, it was my dad's brother, my uncle. We were at his job, and out of the blue, I was like 5 or 6 years old. And I told my uncle, I'm going to be way more famous than Billy Barty. And my uncle laughed, and he goes, then you became famous.
And you are way more famous than Billy Barty.
Yeah, I think he had his time, and it was that window.
That's right.
But with how everything grew and all that, it's crazy.
Yeah, and he was in Chevy Chase movies, just like what we talked about a minute ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are definitely more famous. I mean, if Billy Barty was around, he would not have 1.3 million Instagram followers.
No.
He'd have like 70,000 or something.
I think what he had relevant to nowadays is what he had his golf charity events.
Right.
Which I think would equal to that nowadays.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the value of that is about the same value nowadays.
Right. All right, back to the record. So Salad. Rat Salad, what a great title for a song. And, Bill's Ginger Baker moment in the sun with that drum solo. But to me, there's still a little bit shaking off the debut's B-side British blues cream moves.
Oh, I feel it 100%. And it's another song that unless I hear it, I won't play it.
So you'll skip this one?
Yep.
Bill Ward used to fill out a whole 45 minutes doing a drum solo.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, early on.
When he was younger, he was an amazing drummer. I mean, he's an amazing drummer, granted, older or not, but yes, his drumming is amazing.
Apparently, Rat Salad, Geezer is on record as saying that it came from a joke about Bill Ward's hair not having been combed.
Which, once again, goes back to like the pen nib thing.
Yeah, exactly. These are just dudes busting on each other, and then the universe, they define it as something demonic. Mm-hmm. So, these guys eat rats for breakfast.
Yeah.
All right, fairies wear boots.
I love this song. Musically and whatever, I'll play this song.
One of the best tracks on the album, I think.
Yep.
And easily the best track on the second side. There's no question in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
And here is where they learn how to go out on a real bang, because this song truly swings. And I'm going to give it really to Bill, because his almost jazz-infused work on the kit gives the song a swing that I think would otherwise be a little bit missing. And of course, this is Jack the Stripper / Fairies Wear Boots.
Fairies Wear Boots, yep.
And that could be my favorite combined title of Black Sabbath history.
Do you know why it's called Fairies Wear Boots and where it came from? Ozzy was always tired of seeing the skinheads, in downtown, all dressed up and wearing, the Doc Marten boots. He thought they were just fairies with boots.
But my favorite thing about the lyrics, Geezer said that Ozzy's lyrics often went off in random tangents. And the second half of the song is about LSD.
Yeah.
He wrote those lyrics about LSD. So I guess that's Ozzy writing those lyrics.
Yeah.
Ozzy says in his autobiography that he did not recall what the song was written about, even though it's like...
Well, I think that's the LSD kicking in for Ozzy.
Exactly right.
Where he's like, what?
Yeah. All right, so here's my capsule review on the record. Okay. This is unquestionably the most overexposed SABBATH LP, and also the one that most people are referring to when they talk about him. It's stuffed to the gills with an embarrassment of classics, and most essentially, it's offhandedly confident, knocking down everything in its path with a barely cognizant grasp of its own limitless superpowers. My only complaint with it is that the first side is so ludicrously perfect that it fumbles just a bit on the flip, but only in context. So yeah, it's unquestionably front-loaded, but the flip's strong enough to hold its own, especially considering that it's their second album of that year. That's wildly impressive, and when you really think about it, The fact that this was their second album and not their first is legitimately crazy. Any other band's career would have started with a record like Paranoid, a collection of a band's strengths all gathered together with a sense of self-conscious perfection. Like, let's make it as good as we can, and somehow these guys flipped the sophomore slump script only a few months after the debut with an impossibly immediate ascent to the metal mountaintop. And for that reason, and I don't often overlook, what are obvious flaws, like, the drum solo thing didn't need to be on the record, I'm still giving it 5 stars.
Nice. I gave it 5 stars too. What it is the old saying where you live your whole life to write your first album and then everything's after that. This was the one. This one, and I would say maybe the next one, Volume 4, which is 2 more down. But this one was, like you said, the sophomore one that hit the top that should have been there first. But yeah.
What's crazier to me than having a great debut, way crazier, is having a great second album.
And all hits. Almost all the whole first side was all hits.
Yeah, for your second album to be like a greatest hits record is the most impressive thing a band could ever do.
Yeah.
Because that's when a band freaks. It's the first time people are conscious that you're a band like with an album on a rack to buy.
Yeah.
And people are listening to you at home, and it changes.
And you're going to be judged.
Right.
And you're going to be judged, yeah.
It can change how you write. It can make you self-conscious. They just got better. And not only did they get better, but, they went straight to the top. There was nowhere to go but to remain there. You can't really get better than this. All right, that about does it. Stay tuned, because next week, we've got part 2 of Wee Man on Ozzy-era Black Sabbath. Okay, here's the week up ahead. This Sunday, our weekly show within a show, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast, drops for our Patreon's private tier. These are real people with talent and a burning fire deep inside, just like you and I. Then come Monday, the major tier gets a very special treat. Monday's bonus episode is another Chuck chat from the Chuck Granata Pet Sounds interview series. This one with Tom Frangione. Tom's been part of the official Beatles channel on SiriusXM since its launch in 2017, serving as their resident Beatles expert. He co-hosts the weekly Fab Forum, Apple Jam with co-host David Frick, and the weekly Rarities program Way Beyond Compare. He also writes the weekly show Across the Universe, which focuses on John Lennon's life and music. Tom is the longtime master of ceremonies at the Fest for Beatles fans, as well as acting as contributing editor to Beatle Fan Magazine and Joe Johnson's Beatle Brunch Radio. Above all else, this is hands down the funniest interview of Chuck's series. There will be a very short sneak peek running publicly for free on Monday morning, but the entirety of the show will only be accessible on the major tier of our Patreon. Don't miss it, or you'll only be getting part of the story. And then on Wednesday, the Lieutenant tier gets their early release, ad-free, super extended director's cut of part 2 of the Wee Man Black Sabbath deep dive. It's the episode as it was truly intended to be heard, with all the essentials left intact. And then come Friday, everyone else gets to join in on the action. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to my beautiful wife and son, Jen and Mason, Chuck Granata, Richard Holland, Rudy Fishman, Becky Boyd, Bespoke LA, my mom, my incredibly loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community, the Soldiers of Sound. I love every last one of you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones. They're in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator, and much, much more. So don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, no sweat. Just email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you in the loop. So now that it's done and you want more, another way to dive even deeper into face-melting hard rock and metal is to leap headfirst into Tom Morello Rates the MC5, that's episode 177, Mike Watt rating the Minutemen, that's 124 to 126, Testament's Alex Skolnick, that's 122 to 123. Mogwai's Stuart Braithwaite rates Joy Division, that's 203 and 204. No Age's Randy Randall on the Jesus Lizard, that's 70 and 71. Jim Florentine on the entirety of the Black Sabbath catalog, that's 64 to 68. Bob Nastanovich rates the Pavement catalog, that's 49 to 58. The Pixies, that's 18. Nirvana is episode 30. PJ Harvey is episode 12. Bob Mayer rates the Replacements, that's 28 and 29. Bully's Alicia Bagnano is 96 and 97. And Van Halen is episode 9. And of course, be sure to mark your calendars, because next Friday, September 19th, we're coming at you with part 2 of Wee Man on Ozzy-era Black Sabbath. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti!